are back in my kitchen and we are going to be making soup. Not just any soup, we are going to be making a chickpea noodle soup. Now, noodle soup, obviously chicken noodle soup is a favorite. I don't know, if you grew up in North America, it's pretty much like the definition of comfort soups. And I figured it's COVID, it's the cold season. So it's probably good to have like a nice, like warming, comforting December soup for if you're feeling, well, healthy or under the weather. I mean, I'm healthy and I'm going to be eating this. So I've made a lot of variations. Actually, before I get into story time, as I point my knife at you, my friend, I'm going to just let you know what I'm doing. I have 2 pots on the stove right now. One pot is for cooking noodles, which we'll talk about. And then this one is for sauteing the vegetables, making the soup. I'm just heating this one up, and I'm trying to bring that water to a boil. So, okay. One more thing. So I'm cutting, I'm going to start by sauteing an onion, which I basically just cut the onion in half because I find that it helps get the skin off a little bit more easily as I struggle. It makes it so easy, you guys. Sometimes onion skins are just moody. Sometimes. It's also pretty early in the morning. I'm filming this, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that because maybe you can see a clock and you're like, are you serious, Allysia? It's 10 a.m. But, you guys, I'm making soup at 10 a.m. I haven't really spoken a lot today. So the brain might be in a different sort of capacity. Anyways, I'm finally peeling these moody onions. I'm gonna dice them. I was kind of thinking, so another thing about how I tend to cook, I do have a recipe-ish up on here. It's not a recipe so much as just names of things that are going in this. So I wrote chickpeas, I wrote vinegar, I wrote an onion. So I'm kind of making decisions as I go, but this is how I like to cook, and this is a soup I've made a million times. That's not remotely exaggerating. This soup I've probably made 6 or 7 times because I don't tend to repeat recipes very often. And every time I've done it just a little bit different. Wow, do you hear that loud buzzing? As soon as I call attention to it, it stops, of course. I don't know, I think it's like a grater or something that's dealing with the snow outside. So if you hear random buzzing. But I'm just slicing the onion halves, following the natural indentation of the onions with my knife. Probably about like 1/4-inch slices, not cutting all the way through to the root end. And then I'm cutting in the opposite direction to create a dice. I thought about having slices of onions. I think that would be fine too, but we're going to do a dice. So that's 1 diced onion in here. And that was not the sizzle I was hoping for, but that's okay. Which means my pan isn't quite hot enough. Oh, I'm going to start crying. Okay, you guys. Whew. One moment. That is a potent onion. I think I remember, I'm just going to be wincing at you for a minute, but I think I remember reading that, or maybe they told me this at culinary school, but the older the onion is, the more shockingly sulfurous it is. So I might have mascara running down my face at the start of this video, looking like Ozzy Osbourne by the end of it. We'll see. Okay. Wooden spoon. Where have you gone to? Rhyming. It wasn't my finest rhyming moment, you guys. Okay, so I am going to cook these onions, saute them. It looks like my pasta water's almost boiling, so we'll talk about that in a moment. Chicken noodle soup to me. I've done this without any type of protein, and it's really good. My favorite restaurant in the city makes this really good like vegan noodle soup. By the way, it's a vegan recipe, in case I didn't already specify this. I just assumed that like 5 of you watching this already know who I am and what I do. But they make it without chickpeas, without any kind of like chicken sub. Basically what they do is just the vegetables, like the carrot, onion, celery. It's in my hands and it's not coming to me. And then a whole bunch of fresh herbs. And I did try to order some fresh herbs, and all I have is thyme. So normally I would do like thyme, rosemary, and oregano, just like a whole bunch of fresh minced herbs, and that's what makes it incredibly delicious. So I did blog this recipe a long time ago, where to get like the perfect broth texture, what I would do is I would take, I don't know, like 1/4 of the finished soup, and I would run it in a food processor, not a blender, because I just wanted it to get like slightly thicker and the pieces just a little chopped up. And we might do that. I haven't decided yet. So while my onions are sauteing, it looks like my pasta water is boiling. So when we make homemade chicken noodle soup, it's important to cook the pasta, like the noodle parts, separate, because otherwise it just absorbs too much liquid. Like they get kind of mushy in the fridge. So I always add the noodle portion to my bowl when I'm heating it up, like when I'm having leftover portions. But you don't want it sitting in your soup for like a week. So these are just regular whole wheat spaghetti noodles. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break them. So, I don't know, for like the entire noodle, break them in, I don't know, thirds, quarters? Let's do quarters. And it's kind of rough, so we'll just wing it. Ooh, and I'm spilling. Of course I am. Now, as far as the amount, this is, again, I don't measure things, so I feel like I'm trying to set an expectation here. But I would say like half a box of spaghetti, this is 375 grams. I'm thinking like 200 grams would be more than enough for the amount we're making. I mean, might as well have a little more noodles, because what's the worst case scenario? You just have more noodles? Oh no, life is very challenging. Ooh, I'm burning noodles. Okay, so my onions are going along just nicely, so I'm going to start, while that's cooking, dicing some celery. So fun little pasta trick. You ever have that? Of course you have. You've had the situation where you put in your pasta in the pot, and then it boils over and explodes all over the stove. We've all been there. If you put a wooden spoon across it, it's not going to make it so it doesn't do that, but it will buy you precious time. So what you'll notice, I left it on a rolling boil so you can see what's happening here. The wooden spoon is going to prevent that explosion. Not forever, but it prevents it a little bit. I'm just watching it creep up. I'm watching it creep up. I feel like it's doing pretty good right now, guys. It's doing pretty good. I'm going to turn it down now, though, because I don't want to push fate. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of water to my onions because I don't want them to get too hot in there. So what I'm doing with my celery to dice it is I basically just slice it into strips and then into skinnier strips. So I'm basically taking like a celery piece, cutting into quarters or thirds, just depending on how big it is. And then what I'm going to do is that's going to become a dice. So these are going to be about half-inch pieces, quarter-inch pieces, somewhere in there. I'm Canadian. I mean, give me some leeway with the imperial system. Is that what it's called? I'm metric. You're imperial. Metric is a Canadian band. Maybe that's a good way to remember it. I mean, I'm sure they would have chosen their name for that reason, right? Right? Canadian band chooses Metric as their band name. I was listening to them the other day. I really like their older albums, like Old World Underground. Where Are You? Is that what it's called? That's a really good album, you guys. And actually, Fantasies is okay too. Some of their stuff, like the Las Vegas one, I'm not a huge fan. Anyway, is this a music talk or is this a cooking show? So I'm dicing my celery. I'm going to get that in the pot with the onion soon. And it's a pretty rough dice. I don't mind chunks. Like, I don't need such a fine dice that I'm not having, like, you know, I like having chunks of celery in my soup. So I'd say, what are these? These are like quarter-inch-ish pieces, right? Okay, wow. I just got a bag of carrots. New bag. These might be the jumboest carrots I've ever seen. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities for inappropriate comments right now. Okay, time to peel this thing. Let's change the subject swiftly. Dicing this carrot is going to be a different experience than dicing a regular carrot, but I'll walk you through it. Do the peel. Looks like my noodles are still boiling. I'm going to have to give that a stir. Now this soup is pretty easy because, I mean, once I have the carrot in there, I'm basically going to just add the herbs and like the dry ones and the liquid, and then we're just going to let them cook for 10 minutes. Basically 10 or 15 minutes, long enough for the celery to soften a little bit. Celery is the slowest one to cook out of everything in here. So onions soften and carrots soften before celery does, I find. Which is why I did the celery first in there. Okay, let's make this into more manageable size. Okay, here we go. Cut it in half. So we want to, whenever we're working with like a round vegetable, it's really important to square it off, which just basically means cutting it in a way where it will sit flat on the table as you continue to slice it. So I'm going to cut the carrot in similar sized slices to the celery because I want them to be the same size on the spoon. And then I'm going to be really careful and stack it. You got to be super careful because if you stack carrots, they have a really bad habit of sliding around and causing all kinds of mayhem and wounds kitchen wounds, especially like the carrot parts with the curved edges. But I'm basically dicing this exactly as I did the celery. So I'm creating these thin, long strips, and then I'm cutting the strips in the opposite direction to create like a rough dice, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, something like that. Yeah, and I think I would normally use about 3 regular sized onions or carrots, but since this one is so mammoth, we are using just 1. If I were to measure, looks like probably the easiest measurement would be 1 cup of all 3 vegetables. So 1 cup of, the onion's still getting me, guys. 1 cup of diced onion, 1 cup of diced celery, and 1 cup of diced carrot. It's a really easy way to remember it, and anything in that ballpark would work just fine. So that's what I would recommend. Okay, so I've squared off my carrot. I've sliced it into, I don't know, sticks, or I'm in the process of slicing it into sticks. Things are smelling oniony, and we're almost at the part where we just watch and wait. So finish dicing these guys, remembering to tuck in my fingers so I don't chop them off. Very important. It really detracts from the cooking experience if you chop off your fingers. I know you needed me to tell you that. I know that. So this is like, actually this looks like it's more like I've added 2 cups of carrots. So I'm going heavy with the carrots. Cool by me. I like carrots. So I'm going to give this another minute. It looks like at this point the onions are translucent, which is what I'm looking for. The fibrous, like the hard fibrous edges of the celery has been tamped down a little bit, which is good. So let's do this. I'm going to add a little bit of soy sauce. I just want, chicken has a really savory flavor that vegetarian ingredients don't have, but soy sauce is a super savory flavor too. So adding this, I feel like it's just going to give the whole soup a little bit more richness. Probably 2 tablespoons or so is about what I've added. I have my better than bouillon, so vegetable bouillon cubes or any kind of vegetable stock is what you'd want to use here. I'm going to go ahead, before I add this, it's brand new, I haven't opened it yet. I am going to add some oregano, about a teaspoon. And that's going to smell really good. And I'm going to add my fresh thyme towards the end. I also want to put in some chili flakes. Probably do about or hot pepper flakes. Probably do about a teaspoon of this too. I like my get well soon, like my sick person soup, to have some spice to it. I mean, I like spice anyway. I just like I like a nice brothy soup with that little bit of like that little bit of heat. It makes it really, really nice. Okay, so time to add the water. I'm gonna start with 4 cups. Most soup recipes that I make, I generally aim for about 4 cups of liquid. That usually ends up equating to about 4 servings. It's kind of like how I measure things in my head. But I always adjust the liquid level if it looks too thin or too thick. So I'm going to bring this to a boil. Looks like my noodles are still cooking, so that's great. And I'm going to add some chickpeas. Chickpea noodle soup. This is about the equivalent of a can of chickpeas, so about 1.5 cups. Not too many. And hopefully you can't see my messy dishwasher. Okay, so that's looking good so far. I'm almost definitely going to blitz this in the food processor for a couple minutes when everything is done. So at this point, I'm going to save the final seasonings for the end. So what I'll do right now is apparently clean up in front of you. You can watch me put away my noodles. I'm going to put in a little bit of the vegetable broth, if I can open this. Okay. I am a strong, independent woman who can twist her own jar. I can't do it. Okay, let's try this again. I can do this. This is the behind the scenes of the Rachel Ray. Is she a chef? I was trying to think. It's like the Martha Stewart part that always gets edited out. Oh my god, I don't know if I can do this, you guys. What are the tricks? I know. Oh, I got it. I am a strong, independent woman. Ooh, that was really thick. Okay, so 4 cups of liquid. I mean, use as much vegetable broth as the directions tell you. Mine is telling me 1 teaspoon. It's telling me basically 1.5 tablespoons for the amount. So I am going to spoon in some amount that looks roughly equivalent to 1.5 tablespoons. Stir that in. I usually, like, the vegetable broth I buy is just, like, whatever I see at the store. Better than bouillon is my favorite, though. I think it has a great flavor. I love how easy it is to blend into things because it's so syrupy. A lot of stock powder cubes can be really hard and, like, hard to dissolve, too. And I just find it's easier to work with. I can add it to sauces and things like that really fast. So, I'm going to let this cook for, let's say, 10 or 15 minutes, and we'll check back in on it. All right, so it's been about 15 minutes. My noodles are cooked, and they're just sitting in the strainer. They look a little long. I feel like I could have maybe broken them into smaller pieces. So I might actually, at the end, go through and just chop them up a little bit. But my next step right now is going to be to ladle some of this into the food processor, give it a little bit of a blitz, and then I'm going to add the final ingredients like the herbs and stuff like that and taste it to finish. So my food processor is set up off camera, so it's behind me. I'm just, limited counter space here. So I'm thinking, I mean, I still want this to be like a chunky vegetable soup. I don't want this to be smooth, but I don't want the broth to be just totally pure liquid. Like, I'd like for a little bit of contrasting texture. So I have about a third or so of the soup in here. I think that's going to be about right. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a blitz. Yeah, so this is what I'm sort of looking for here. You can see, like, I really only ran the food processor for about 10 seconds. So it's more like everything is really finely minced. I'm going to pour this in and see what it looks like. I might do one more batch. Let's just see what kind of texture that gives us. Actually, I think that looks pretty good. I want to see if you can see this as well. I might do just one more batch, but hopefully you can see. Like, it's still pretty liquidy. You can still see the chunks, but it has a little bit more of an interesting texture. I think I'll do a little bit more. So this is something like maybe half, like blending about half the soup. And I think that'll be just right. Perfect. All right, so at this point, it's time to add the herbs, however you want to say it. So I got some fresh thyme minced up here. Figured you didn't want to watch me chop herbs. Feel like you guys get the idea after watching me chop all those vegetables. So this is just a bunch of parsley. Probably about, if I were to pack it down, that'd be about half a cup of parsley. And I'm just going to let that, I still have the burner on pretty low. So I'm just going to let that melt down, like the parsley will kind of melt into the soup a little bit. Oh, that's looking good. It's looking good, you guys. Oh, I'm feeling this. Okay, I'm going to plate so you can see what everything looks like in a bowl. Bowl. Get some noodles in the bowl. I'm going to put them in the bottom. Oh, those are hot. I knew they were hot. Why did I do that to myself? So careless. I feel like there's probably a better way to do this than with a ladle. You're watching me struggle right now. So I probably put about a quarter cup of noodles for one portion. Maybe a little more would be good. I'll have to clean up the edges a little bit too. Oh, this looks nice, you guys. This looks nice. Oh dear. Okay, I want to show you my bowl, but I'm also afraid of spilling soup everywhere. So give me 1 second. All right, here's our chicken noodle soup. So you can see it's still like pretty brothy, but it's got like a really nice minced texture with the noodles in there. And I want to actually see what it tastes like. Probably add a little bit of lemon to the individual portions. I think that would be really nice. Okay, I'm just gonna try a bite without the lemon. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I could probably cut down these noodles a little. They're a little long. I want to get a bite with the noodle though. Okay. It's really hot. It's really hot. Okay. Seriously, the food processing makes it such a beautiful texture. The teaspoon of red pepper flakes, I'm like, that goes right to my nose. I love it. This is definitely a great bowl of comfort food if you're feeling under the weather or if you just want to like warm yourself up. I love it. It would be better with the lemon, but it's really great even without. I love this soup so much. Anyway, I'm just going to keep eating. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you had fun. I encourage you to give it a try, and I'll catch you in the next one.